Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. So we're here going through this amazing section, just absolute genius on the part of Krishna, where we see these one-word definitions of important things in life, such as beauty, education, modesty, will be seen today. And Krishna gives these one-word definitions which completely change your life. It just turn your life upside down, because this is a completely different way of looking at these things, and of course opening up the true nature of these things and the true nature of life and our own selves. So of course, if you want to watch all the previous classes, all you have to do is become a member of this channel. You can do that by checking out the description of this video. There's a link where you become a member of this channel, and then you can see the whole course organized at Uddhava-gita.com. Okay, so we are here now in the 11th canto, 19th chapter, and we're going through verses 40 to 45, where Krishna is putting these very sutra-like definitions one after another. So in the last class, we saw Krishna defining the supreme goal of life, which was to have bhakti, to understand devotion and live in devotion to Krishna. So now he continues. The actual education, so what is education? What does it mean to become educated? He says it means nullifying the false perception of duality in the soul. So because we use many words here in English, but in Sanskrit, it's quite impressive, because all he does is use two words. He says, so education, vidya, knowledge, education, is atmani bidha bhada, three words. So he says it's atmani, in the soul, bidha, duality, bhada, stopping, nullifying. So that's all you have to do. You have to stop with this duality in the soul. What does that mean? That means that you have to understand, for one thing, that we are all souls. So that understanding that all living beings are soul. They're all atma. See, the word here is atmani. You always see in Vedanta, in these Vedantic texts like Bhagavad Purana and Bhagavad Gita, atma is the word for soul. In the Yoga Sutras, you'll see Purusha. We use that too here, but in general, the term Atma is used for soul. So the Atma, for one thing, there's no duality. You are an Atma, I'm an Atma. We're the same. We're not the same Atma, but we're both equally the same Atmas. Exactly the same, even though my body is very different from your body, and of course my body is very different from this plant body and all the other bodies in existence, but they're overall Atma. And the other duality we have to cease is the duality between us and the Paramatma, the supreme soul. Parama, supreme Atma, soul, Paramatma, the supreme soul, God. So there's also no complete separation between us and God. We are parts of God. Swami Prabhupada would use the term part and parcel. It took me a while to understand part and parcel. What he meant is part, because we're part of God, everything comes from God. Krishna says, Mame vamso jiva loki. He says, you're my parts. Literally he uses the word parts. We are his parts, he says in Bhagavad Gita. So we are parts of Krishna. Everything is actually from Krishna. There's nothing outside of God in the Vedic concept of God. There's nothing outside, beyond God. There's no other thing. Nothing is separate. Everything is God's energy. We're within God. Everything is in God. And God is in everything as well. And yet God is apart from everything, Krishna says. So anyway, so we are parts of Krishna. And then he says, part and parcel. What was it? Parcel. What was it? So parcel means, what do you have when you have a parcel? It's separated, right? Imagine a whole pile post office, and you have the little parcel. So you have all the mail, but in that whole pile of mail and shipment, you have these different parcels. So we are individual soul, eternally an individual. I am me and you are you, and we'll always be me and you. Krishna says we've always existed and will always exist. It's one of the first teachings he gives Arjuna in the Bhagavad-gita. Very important understanding. So I've always been an eternally existing Atma, as have you, and as has the Atma within this plan and the Atma within every living being everywhere beyond the universe as well. So all the Atmas have always existed individually as a parcel and will always exist like that. But we are also not disconnected. There's no duality from God, from Paramatma, because we are his parts. So these two things. That is true Vidya. And of course the word Vedas is Vidya, same root, knowledge. So that what we have to really understand from the Vedas is that. So that is true knowledge, true education. Okay, next thing. Real modesty. Now Krishna is going to define modesty. Modesty is to be disgusted with improper activities. So real modesty isn't faking, like being shy and just kind of like putting that veneer of being shy and modest or something. No, it's actually not like really hating this, finding it disgusting, the improper activities. That's real modesty. It's when you have this very strong, you've developed your dharmic vision well, because that's what we're doing in yoga. That's what, once you start on this path, and it could be in any religion, in any tradition ever, you have to develop your dharmic view. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, yogi, Hindu, whatever you think you are. Every path, if it's a real path, you will develop your dharmic vision. So in the beginning, we're confused, we don't know, we have other values. We're created, we're born in different cultures, in different families, different cultural influences. So people have all sorts of confused views of life. That's how we start. Everybody's very confused. What's good? Oh, wealth is good, fame is good. So you start with the most distorted view of reality. No, I should be beautiful, I should be famous, I should be rich. That's what people think. Completely wrong, absolutely wrong, and completely wrong side of the whole equation. So no, we have to focus on values. But then what's a value? How do I know what my purpose is, what dharma is? So it takes a while. You have to develop this dharmic view. It's something you cultivate. As you practice sattva guna, as you meditate, as you have devotion, as you do these things, gradually you develop more and more dharmic living. Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, I just did a video on this recently here on the channel. Krishna explains in Bhagavad-gita that bhakti, when you practice bhakti to him, you will attain dharmic living. So he says one of the things you will get as a benefit of devotion to God is to become dharmic. And this is true, again, in all religions, in all paths, we see all the serious, if you're a serious Jew, Christian, Muslim, you should be very dharmic, very ethically correct, morally correct, very focused on being good, being the best of yourself. So these things are universal. So as you develop this path, you become more and more dharmic. And you see more clearly what is dharma. And as a result, you can also see clearly what is adharma. The opposite of dharma is adharma. A lot of Sanskrit things, you just put an A at the beginning and it's like the negative. So jnana is knowledge, ajnana is ignorance, like that. Even the word ignorance is from ajnana. It just came down like that. So when you develop dharmic living, when you develop a proper dharmic consciousness, you will also be able to clearly see adharma. And you won't want it. You really get disgusted by it. You just hate it because it's so bad. It's just bad for your own mind. It's bad, of course, for whoever is being around the person who's practicing adharma. Adharma is just horrible. That's why the basic message of all the avatars, of all the scriptures, again, of the whole world, is be dharmic. That's the basic message. Buddha and Krishna and Rama and Jesus. And, the basic message, of course, there's always bhakti there, practice bhakti, but be dharmic. And it just becomes disgusting when you see adharma. It's just so destructive. It's so horrible. It doesn't bring any joy. It's just a demented behavior. It just hurts yourself, it hurts others, it destroys the planet. It's disgusting. So real modesty, Krishna says, is to develop this disgust for adharma. Very nice. Next, what is beauty? Beauty, Krishna says, is to possess good qualities, such as detachment. So that's real beauty, of course. The superficial beauty of models and, magazine covers or something, it's so fake, right? I mean, of course, we've been living for decades now with the mega fake Instagram images, that whole thing of, we're so sick of it, but people can't get away from it because they're attached to the wrong concept of beauty. So when you have the concept of beauty in terms of just like looks, of this like, whatever proportions of nose and eye and cheekbones, they may be attractive. So when you're kind of on that very superficial physical attraction concept of beauty, again, because it's not real, it leads to distorted behavior and leads to lies. It leads to adharma, right? It leads to adharma. It leads to adharmic behavior. People go crazy, people, beautiful people get harassed. Beautiful women are in constant danger and getting harassed because there's all this adharmic energy, because people are focused on an adharmic concept of, physical appearance, which isn't true to the soul. This is just a body. This is just a shell. So the real soul, the real Atma, it has nothing to do with this. This is just a very fleeting, ephemeral thing covering me, just a will-o'-the-wisp. And of course, if you've lived a little longer, even just 30 years, you know that just your body just gets ravaged by the passing of time. So beauty just goes. And of course for men, the whole thing, and then we see the movies and a lot of people know now, those actors, they hate it. They look amazing on screen, but they hate it to death, and they even refuse roles. After a while, they're a little famous. They're like, no, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to only appear in camera with like a full shirt on or something, because they don't want to have to go through that horrific process of being able to look like that for a day. Because, they have to starve themselves and work out like mad and take, sorts of unhealthy things, and just to be able to look amazing for that scene, for those scenes. So it's very artificial. And it just goes, It goes just like that look lasts literally like a day. And the next day the person doesn't look like that. Even like at night, they don't look like that anymore. And then what to speak of like 10 years later, that's it, it's gone. It's gone. So very fleeting. So you definitely don't want to focus on external beauty. What you want though is this is really beautiful, having good qualities. Because good qualities, for one thing, you can have that your whole life. You can have good qualities from being a child all the way till you're 100 years old. You can have this same beauty. and you can make yourself more beautiful. Therefore, from the superficial beauty, you can actually become more beautiful with the passing of time. As you become older, if you're living a good life and cultivating this kind of knowledge, you can become wiser and have more of these beautiful qualities. You can develop, if you're following the path, if you're following Krishna's instructions, you can develop all these beautiful qualities, such as detachment more and more, kindness, compassion, detachment, knowledge, wisdom. You can develop all these dharmic beautiful qualities, devotion. You can develop this and become ever more beautiful. And that's why you see used as an honorary term, the term Shri. We say, oh, Shri Swami Prabhupada. The Shri is beauty. It's like, Shri is the goddess of fortune, beauty. But it's that Shri is used in that sense, beautiful in the sense of good quality. So we use Shri, Srila. We use that. Those terms mean beautiful, but they mean beautiful in this sense. Okay. Now, as promised by the cover title, Krishna will define happiness and unhappiness with a single word. So what is that? So Krishna says, and I'll read here just the Sanskrit, he says, so real happiness, he says, sukha, real happiness, means transcending, means to transcend sukha dukkha in material life. That's what real happiness is to be able to transcend the material happiness and unhappiness. So just transcending, one word, just transcend. That's how you become happy. Transcend what? Transcend all this, transcend this concept. He says real sukha is to go beyond the idea of sukha dukkha in the material world. Sukha, pleasure, dukkha, suffering. Go beyond these things. Here, up and down duality. Krishna says, at the very beginning of Bhagavad-gita, to Arjuna, he says, Arjuna, you have to go beyond. These things come and go. They're connected to the senses. Winter and summer, honor and dishonor, these things are external. He says over and over and over again to Arjuna to develop equanimity. Go beyond this. You have to develop this equanimity. Don't worry about the things here that are varying all the time. It's nice, it's not nice, you have honor, you have dishonor, you have money, you don't have money, you have health, you're ill. These things are just happening all the time here. Transcend that. Go beyond that. And then you'll have real sukha, real happiness. So real happiness is to transcend material happiness and unhappiness. And then, what is misery then? So what is really, if that's happiness, what would be dukkha? What would be suffering? So then he says dukkha, and dukkha is kama. Dukkha is kama. Dukkha, misery, is dukkha. When you're searching for pleasure, he says, searching for sukha, for pleasure, through kama. So what is kama? Kama, very important term. Prabhupada would always translate it as sex, but it's not sex. It's all desire. It's very important to understand that sukha isn't just sex. The way he put it is like, oh, he's just demonizing sex. It's kind of like a Victorian thing. Maybe it was some influence from like the Victorian Christian education or something. But real kama is just all the desires. It's very important to understand that. If the only problem was sex, that'd be easy. It'd be so easy, just kind of like, and some people are born asexual, so they would be blessed. Like 1 or 2% of people are born asexual, so they would be like these, 1 or 2% of people would already be like automatically, spiritually perfect. No, it doesn't work. It's not that easy. Kama is all desire. Kama is when you prioritize any sense desire. Any sense, not just the genitals, all the senses. And even like intellectual pleasure and mental pleasure, any sort of search for sukha, you're searching for pleasure in matter. If you search for pleasure in matter and you prioritize that, that's the difference here, because we always get pleasure. Even the most strictest, hatha yogi, the strictest, most renounced yogi you can imagine, just living naked, in a cave. But he's got lots of pleasure. He drinks water. It's pleasant. Drinking water is very pleasant. He eats something. Maybe he eats a root or a leaf from the forest or fruit, but that's pleasurable. And he takes a bath in the river, that's pleasurable. So some days it might not be pleasurable because it's cold or something, but at least sometime it's going to be nice taking a bath in the river. And he sits down and he looks, and usually these yogis would be in the forest, out in the Himalayas, out in nature, so it's very nice, right? Sitting in nature. I love looking at nature. So there's pleasure all the time, and he's going to meet other yogis and renunciants, and they're going to talk, and that's going to be nice. So there's always going to be pleasure. There's always pleasure. Even the most renounced sage is going to have lots of pleasure all day long. It's something you ate, it's just sitting down, the pleasure of just having a bath, drinking some water, of just enjoying the peace of being a sage, a renounced sage. These things are all very pleasurable. So there's always pleasure. But kama means seeking. Also, in this sense, it means like you're prioritizing, you're seeking the pleasure. You think the pleasure is what you need. You think that's the goal of life. It becomes your goal. Then it becomes a problem. When kama is the goal, then it's the problem. That's what yoga is telling you to avoid. Krishna says, there's a very dramatic scene in the Bhagavad-gita at the end of chapter 3, where Krishna is telling Arjuna is like saying, why do we do stupid things? Like, what is this? It seems like we're forced to do stupid things. What is it? And then Krishna says, kama esha, krodha esha. He says it's kama and krodha, anger. But he says, kama esha, krodha esha. This which is born of Rajaguna. These two things impel you to do stupid things. And then he says, look, you have to be careful because this kama, it's all over the place. It's in your intelligence, in your mind, in your senses. And this is the great enemy that devours everything, Krishna says. Very dramatic language. It devours everything. Kama krodha. It devours everything. It just destroys your existence, these two things. Later he expands it to lobha as well, greed. So these things destroy your life because the search for pleasure destroys your life. Again, if you prioritize dharma and bhakti, you'll have lots of pleasure. So kama in the sense of pleasure, and he says, that's the dharma-based kama. He says, I am the dharma-based kama. So he says, so kama based on dharma, that's godly. Krishna says, that is me. He says that he compares it to himself. So when you have pleasure in dharma, when you've been prioritizing dharma and bhakti, then naturally you get pleasure. That's wonderful. That's divine. You don't have to have kama as your goal. That's the big mistake people are doing in the world. People think the goal is kama. The goal is not kama. The goal is dharma and bhakti. The goal is Krishna. Krishna just said the supreme goal is me, bhakti to me. So the supreme goal is bhakti. And then to get to bhakti, you need dharma. When you have bhakti, you get dharma anyway. Krishna says, I'll give you dharma. But of course, if you have, the more you cultivate dharma, the more you can get bhakti as well. So they're all like helping each other out. But when you do these things, when you're going for bhakti, your supreme goal is bhakti. To get there, you have to live a dharmic life and do that as an offering to Krishna. That's Krishna's instruction in the Bhagavad-gita. Krishna's main teaching to Arjuna in Bhagavad-gita. Do your dharma and do that as an offering unto me. So as you're living a dharmic life focused with the supreme goal of bhakti with Krishna, Krishna says, if you have me as the supreme goal, my parama. So Krishna is your goal, and you're doing that through bhakti, you have lots of bliss. My life is full of bliss. It's just so wonderful. It's just blissful just to be thinking of Krishna, to do japa, to see the deity, to offer flowers, to eat prasadam, just being a nice person. These things are all very pleasurable. There's this can't avoid. There's so much pleasure, so much joy. It's very nice. So then you get all this kama. But it's proper kama. It's kama coming from dharma, from bhakti. It's pleasure that comes. It's sukha that comes from transcending the world. So Krishna says the sukha, real happiness, is to transcend material sukha dukkha. And real dukkha is the opposite, is to look for kama. It's to try to find sukha in kama. And that's what everybody's doing. This is the big problem with the world. People are trying to get happiness through kama. And you start going crazy. It starts driving you literally crazy. And that's why you have these, manifestations of unlimited perversion. Horrible things start happening. Because as you start seeking joy, kama, in things, and you do drugs, and you do this, and then sex, and then it just like it never satisfies you, so you have to do more. And you do more extreme versions of it, and you try to like make it more extreme and more extreme. It's like, literally this happens like with drugs, like you do a little bit, and then you need like a little more to get that same hit, and then you need more to get, and then people they go crazy. Then by the end, they're not getting it anymore. They're just in suffering, because now it's just like constant, just suffering. When people get addicted to opioids, and it's just like you need more and more and more and more, and then you just and then it's really unhappy it's horrific. It's like a horrible suffering when you don't have what you need, but then you need more and more. So basically, you're always just suffering. And that's what people get with sex, and they start getting more and more perverted with sex and crazier, disgusting things, because they just want to get more, and there isn't more there. It's empty, it's false, it's an illusion. That's why it's so frustrating. You're not going to find anything there. It was an illusion, it was false. So that is real suffering, that is real dukkha, is to be searching for this kama in matter. Prioritizing kama, that is the main message I try to always convey. So, take this opportunity again to convey, you have to just change this in your life. Remove this search for kama, and instead, dharma. And then, of course, bhakti. Dharma and bhakti. It's a package deal. Because if you just try to do bhakti without dharma, then you're just a stupid, crazy person. You can do horrible things in the name of devotion, like people who are terrorists, or just foolish people. It's like in the name of devotion. No, it doesn't work. It has to be dharma and bhakti, and then you'll get it. So that's it. Beautiful, beautiful sutra-like definitions. There's more to come. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying it. We have quite a few more of these to come in the next classes, if Krishna allows. So have your rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love. Hare Krishna.